This video has spoilers for the mainline Xenoblade Chronicles franchise alongside each expansion. Proceed with caution. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was amazing. It was a perfect game for me. It added a ton of new gameplay ideas, a story that I loved for the most part, and a satisfactory conclusion to a 12-year-old long saga. Ever since Xenoblade Chronicles 2 launched back in 2017, the franchise has dabbled with story expansions that expand on some characters and a new story. For the original Xenoblade Chronicles, we have Future Connected that expands on the character of Melia and the future of the franchise. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 got a prequel known as Torna, the Golden Country, that looks back 500 years before Torna was destroyed, and would expand on the characters of Mithra, Malos, and Jin. So, what does Future Redeemed expand on? What does it improve? Well, for starters, we get the Giga Chad Rex who now wields 2 Aegis swords. We also get protagonists named Matthew, and I'm a Matthew. I'll be completely honest. For everything that I loved about Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I felt that the story was the worst in the trilogy, namely with the third act where Chapter 6 and 7 felt rushed and underwhelming, other than the ending. The villains were a huge step down for me, with only N and Dirk being enjoyable. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 had some fantastic antagonists, with Malos and Jin being nearly perfect. Z, on the other hand, is just there. He's the mastermind behind Origin, but that's just really it. The game doesn't expand on him, and it's the biggest problem of the base game. So, what does Future Redeemed to solve these issues? Well, in order to fully understand everything, we need to start from the beginning. The game opens up to Shulk and Rex and Z fighting against Albus as he seems to be causing a cataclysmic event. Eventually, it proves too much, and later on we find out that this causes Rex to lose his eye and Shulk to lose his arm. The story of Future Redeemed is one that's set in the middle of everything. It's not at the beginning of Ionios, it's set in the middle before the events of the base game. It's also set in the middle of Ionios. Mobius and Z aren't major parts of the story, and instead there are other issues.
While the story of Future Redeemed is quite simple and won't have you rethinking the story of the base game like Torna did, it works as it gives fans closure to characters we wanted to see and hear from after all the things that have happened. Even just seeing them reconnecting with their children despite them unaware of that fact is enough to make XD3 feel like it meant something, which was sorely lacking beforehand.
So, in Future Redeemed, the antagonist is Albus. At this point, my biggest question is, why is he antagonistic? Why is he against us? He's mad that Shulk broke up with him. Nah. Later on we find out that he wants to end Ionios. That's not so bad, right? So why—
An atavistic delusion. It is common among the old. Wholly unnecessary for all subsequent life.
Oh. I'll skip ahead to the most important part of the story, and it's a part that I liked the most. On Prison Island, Matthew's fighting against N, and he realizes the truth behind the city's destruction. It wasn't because of N, but it was because of Gondor's choice, to save Niel. In general, the story of Future Redeemed helps a lot to make N a more enjoyable antagonist, and I already loved him a lot in the base game.
Are you really that much of an idiot?
N just takes it. Eventually, Origin blasts N, and the entire party heads into Origin. And oh my gosh, we're in the original world. A world before Klaus's experiment. Holy shit, this is the big what the fuck moment I want to see this entire time. In addition, we also get a radio that dumps a lot of lore that heavily hints towards the story connection between Xenosaga and Xenoblade Chronicles. We get a name drop, a logo, and even copyright in the copyright sections. I can't wait for all this to lead to an eventual trilogy remaster. Hey, it's not impossible. Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 are getting remastered first, and they're nowhere near as popular as Xenosaga. Though that is saying a lot, since Xenosaga wasn't exactly the most well known when it released. Finally, it's time to face off against the man himself, Alpha. Alpha's first phase isn't anything special, but it's his next phase in form that truly gets the ball running. Alpha turns into this huge... I don't know what to call it. It looks a lot like Persona 5 Royale's final boss, and that's why it's stuck in my head. At the end, N unleashes a power that finally allows the founders to defeat Alpha. They finally unleash the potential of Ouroboros, and they all combine together to become this huge Ouroboros form that's so sick. I was always disappointed that they never did this in the base game, so it's awesome to see it here. In the end, I'm satisfied with the story. It's not as emotional as the mainline titles or as Torna, but it works for what it's accomplishing. Xenoblade 3 was about heading into the future, whereas Future Redeemed was setting up for the future. It works, and I'm happy about that. Except for the part where Z doesn't get expanded at all. He still sucks. Fuck you, Monolith Soft.
Hi, my name is Laszlo, and I just popped in to talk about the prequelness of Future Redeemed. Prequels are a very interesting topic. At the base level, a prequel tells a story that takes place before the events of the original story. When creating a prequel, you have to make sure the new story doesn't contradict the original, and most importantly, you have to make it for a reason. Say you make a story that starts with a character trying to change the world, and throughout the story they do story things, and by the end they succeed and change the world. Now, let's say you want to make a prequel to this story, for some reason or other. Do the events of the prequel matter to the original story? If the prequel takes place in the same universe, how does this new prequel fit into the story of the original? Why are they telling us this story? If it takes place before the original material, why do we need to know what happens at this point in time, when we already know how this story ends up? To put simply, why? Why are you making a prequel? Xenoblade Chronicles 3 manages to have a perfectly crafted answer to each of these questions. Future Redeemed on its own is a great story, and I'm sure you have learned or are going to learn why in other parts of this video. But Future Redeemed gets a gold star because of how it works as a prequel. The story of Future Redeemed attempts to tell the players why things are the way that they are and why it matters that they're that way. The world of Ionios is a very complex place that has so many different aspects that go unmentioned, mentioned but not extrapolated, referenced but never explained, and in general leaves a lot up to the imagination. Not that the missing information in the base game would fundamentally change how the original story is meant to be interpreted. The information that's missing is all just a bunch of lore or past events that are inconsequential to the main story. All that information is just interesting. Might not be important, but it's really interesting. How was the city created? What happened to the Trinity processors, Pneuma, Logos, Ontos? Knowing N and M had a child, what did that child grow up to be? None of these questions are crucial to understanding the story of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but I would love to know the answer to them. Future Redeemed gives us new information that is important, but not necessary to understanding how the story of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 came to be. The reason Future Redeemed is a good story is because it's a good story. But Future Redeemed is a good prequel because it fits so well into the world of Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
I'm feeling full of beans.
I think I found the perfect protagonist in the entire Xeno series. Matthew is hot, strong, and he's named Matthew. Matthew's a very different protagonist compared to Noah. His muscles are bigger, he's rash, and he doesn't think at all, letting him into peculiar situations. A comes in and they're quite mysterious. They're a counterpart for Matthew and have to take care of Matthew when he uses fists instead of his brain. When the trailer released, there were so many theories and questions we had surrounding A. He had a lot of similarities with Alvis, with both having gray hair, the red Aegis core, and both being cute. In Future Redeemed, Matthew is a great-grandson of Noah, or technically Anne right now. Instead of using a sword, Matthew instead uses gauntlets and fights in a manner similar to Fei Fangguang from Xenogears. While I haven't beaten Xenogears myself, it's not hard to see all the similarities between the two characters. In Future Redeemed, Matthew is searching for a sister, Nael, a cat girl that has a strong visual similarity to Nia's beta design from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Later on in the story, we find out that Nael gets a sick new outfit that reminds me a lot of the original Monado. Since Alvis is an Aegis similar to Pyra and Mithra, A is actually a fragment of Alvis, and is his conscience. I found myself to adore A, and they became one of my favorite characters in the entire franchise. A's relationship with Matthew was hilarious, and their sassy but caring attitude towards Matthew helped to make this duo a joy to watch. So, Glimmer and Nikol. These two characters remind me a lot of two other characters, though... Oof, who are they? Well, I got nothing. Glimmer and Nikol are the two party members introduced shortly after Matthew and A are introduced into the story. They're both soldiers of their nations of Agnes and Kevis, respectively, and both of their colonies were fighting before Matthew took a stop to it with his gauntlets. And by the way that he broke up their fighting is hilarious as well.
I told you to cut it out! Yeah, and you!
So, who's Nikol? Well, he's a blonde-haired mechanic who can't seem to draw his own blade, so he has to rely on his own brain, and he actually made his own robotic backpack, which is really cool. Nikol's also incredibly similar to Shulk, design-wise away. They're both nerds, they both love tinkering, and they're both awkward. He's definitely Shulk and Fiora's son, since he's identical to Kid Shulk, and he has his mother's green eyes. There's this one moment in particular that I found adorable, and it made me love Nikol and Shulk's dynamic. Glimmer wields a uniquely made spear that doubles as a fire shell, which is... This is so cool, Monolithsoft. We need more instruments of mass destruction. Please. Glimmer isn't at all like her mother. She's stubborn, has a harsh attitude, and acts selfish sometimes. Aegis Core Crystal or by the hair flip? This is Pyra and Rex's daughter. It was funny to see the man stumble when trying to connect with a daughter that doesn't know anything about families. I will say though, I was disappointed by the end with Glimmer and Nikol. Didn't contribute a lot in the story after their introduction.
I'll show my thing goes straight.
Coming from Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 comes the amazing protagonists of those games. Of course, they both got redesigned and they look so cool now. Shulk's design is heavily inspired by Dunban, with longer hair, an unusable right arm, and a similar outfit. And then there's Rex who, holy Jesus, he looks so good now. Bro is drip and he's wielding both of the Aegis swords. Jesus Christ, and that's not even it. He's also missing an eye. All these new design elements help to make Future Redeemed a joy to play, especially when you play these other games before and you see the other characters that Shulk and Rex got their inspirations from. In Future Redeemed, both Shulk and Rex are fighting together with the Liberators, a group that's teamed up at the original Colony 9 to find and to protect city folk spread out throughout the region. They're also both mentors to two future house leaders. Their introductions in the story are fantastic, and they reference so many things throughout the game, and it's such a treat to go through each affinity scene to see what the old dudes have to say about a landmark or a scene. While they don't contribute as much compared to Matthew and A, they're still very important characters and I love seeing them every second in this game. Besides, who wouldn't after seeing how busted Rex is? Pneuma, Logos, Ontos. These are the three parts of the Trinity processor. Pneuma is Mithra and Pyra, and Logos is Melos. When Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition released, we found out that Alvis was indeed an Aegis, and it should have been a surprise. After the end of Xenoblade Chronicles, I never thought they would ever see Alvis again. I mean, the world survives without a god, and I believed that his role in the story was over. I was wrong. Alvis, or should I say Alpha, returns as the primary antagonist for Future Redeemed, and he isn't actually part of the Mobius's Endless Now. I already talked about his motivations beforehand, so let's just skip all of that for right now. Before the events of Future Redeemed, Alpha split into two, and now Alpha is a heartless machine that doesn't care about the original worlds. Instead, he wishes only to save the city's inhabitants and to wash away the original world's people. This is why Alpha targeted Niall. Time and time again, Niall has experienced the same thing over and over again. She's been forced to see her friends killed and constantly fighting without end. She's sick of it, and she's already lost a lot. She's a perfect host for Alpha, and it's because they're compatible and perfect for each other. Overall, I'm not the biggest fan of Niall, other than her design and personality, because I feel like she's a lot of missed potential. In addition, she's not that great as a party member, and I wish Monolithsoft did more with her in general. I wish that she got to be her own character outside of just being a host for Alpha.
While Xenoblade 2's combat is still my preference, I think Future Redeemed handled the new systems the best and integrated them with the specials from Xenoblade 2 quite well, and the overall progression not being based on just leveling up, but rewarding you for exploring and fighting, is so good and echoes the best parts of previous games' mechanics.
The music in the base game was fantastic, with it striking the right amount of emotion, pain, and pure bliss. Songs like Carrying the Weight of Life, A Step Away, and Where We Belong were some of my favorites in the entire series. I love the entire Xenoblade Trilogy soundtrack, and 3 is currently my favorite in the series. The battle themes and the game having dynamic music was good, but I'll be honest, The environmental songs were so underwhelming. They didn't have the same energy from Xenoblade 1 and 2, and it made me really sad. Environmental music was a huge reason why I loved the series, mainly because it was so unique and helped to make each step that you took feel like a grand adventure. That's why it was a huge but great surprise to see that Monolith Soft actually listened to the fans and made some actually good environmental themes. From the Black Mountains to Aurora Shelf, it was finally amazing to feel this grand scale of adventure with the proper environmental music that I wanted from the very start. We even got to see past songs return from Xenoblade Chronicles. We got Colony 9, Time to Fight, and Fog Beast Battle. I will say though that I wish they got remixed, and overall the returning songs as being the originals, it's a lot of missed potential. I do guess that might be just me expecting more out of the game that already did a lot. If they did remix some previous songs, some that I would have loved to see would have been a new Chain Attack theme, You Will Recall Our Names Final, and remixed versions of the Xenoblade 1 songs. Regardless, each track is amazing and helps to connect the previous games together in yet another way. Also, I geeked out a lot in this one particular scene too, when they referenced the names of music tracks from Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2.
Our plane! Tomorrow with you! Bring me with Chaos Ultimate!
All of them.
All of them!
If I must. From the top then.
You're standing.
While I feel like it's impossible for me to like Future Redeemed more than the base game of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 itself, I still had a fantastic time with this. It introduced so much, and it helped to put a lot of closure on a lot of things missing from the base game. While I do feel like there is some missed potential here and there, none of that matters. Xenoblade Chronicles has been a special franchise for me ever since I started it all the way back in 2020, and now, I'm finished. I'm finally finished with a franchise that started 13 years ago, and I'm finally finishing the epic storyline that started nearly 25 years ago with Xenogears. In my previous Xenoblade Chronicles 3 video, I said that Takahashi had finally fulfilled his lifelong dream of completing perfect works. Obviously, I was wrong. The entire story wasn't finished at that point, but now, the story of Perfect Works is finally complete, thanks to the release of Future Redeemed. Thank you Monolith Soft for everything. Thank you Xenoblade Chronicles for being one of the best franchises ever. Thank you for meaning everything to me.
I've seen that look before. The stare of your fearful looking eyes. That quiet voice inside. What do you hear? Will you give up and stay where you belong? Afraid you're So just walk through, don't take too long, 'cause everything you've said, you value.